Mighty Ape is Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore with everything from movies, music, games, toys, books, hobbies and more. Mighty Ape is your one-stop shop for the things that matter most. They constantly have hot deals and exclusive promos. And if you visit their website on the click-through banner on fakechef.net's homepage, then your purchase will help support Good Movie Monday. Mighty Ape, Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning!
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mean to wish me a good morning? What do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not?
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
Ben, I'm not going to lie, mate. I'm still in total full moon mode from last week's show. That episode hit the spot.
It was good. It was good. It's good, wholesome fun for Full Moon Entertainment.
It would be very easy for me to reel off more full moon titles for today's show with our theme for the week. But I'm sure everybody's had their fill of that, so I won't do it. But robots. Let's talk about robots. If you're a sophisticated consumer of EDM, see, I'm hip, I know the terms, then you might recognise the music playing right now as Robots by those weirdos from Dusseldorf Kraftwerk. Only this isn't Kraftwerk, it's a cover because there's too many legalities around the copyright licensing for the actual music.
Yeah, considering the reputation that bands like Kraftwerk have, like it's the same as Metallica, they are incredibly sensitive to copyright infringement.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll steal everything out. They're all for stealing and burning things down and getting into fights, but hey, intellectual property is no joking.
It's because they know how easy their music is to copy. Ben, I want to start with an inappropriate question for you. Would you rather? So to kick us off, would you rather Rosie the Robot or Cherry 2000?
Oh, Cherry 2000.
Like as if you had to own one of these, it would be Cherry 2000.
Yeah. Let's have. Well, I mean, I'm sure you could teach Cherry to do the housework. I don't know if you could teach Rosie to become a sex bot.
And that's why I said inappropriate.
A perfect life companion.
What are these even from? For all the listeners out there who have no idea what you're talking about, explain.
Rosie the Robot is the maid from the Jetsons. She does all the housework.
Oh,
Cherry 2000,
okay. Yeah.
played by Melanie Griffith, is a sex bot.
No. I mean, yes, she's a sex bot, and yes, it's from Cherry 2000, but Pamela Gidley is the sex bot, and Melanie Griffith is the real woman that tempts David Andrews away from his sex bot
Exactly
obsession.
right. Ben fact checker Hellwig there, everybody. But on that note, allow us to introduce ourselves. Thanks for pressing play. This is our humble little podcast. It's Good Movie Monday, presented by fakeshemp.net, which is home of the nerdy cinematic ramblings. My name is Glenn Cochran, and I am the proud owner of a RoboVac, even though it freaks me out. But the guy who is here week after week, my co-host and your co-host, Ben Hellwig, whose best dance move is definitely the robot. How are you, mate?
I am a robot. I look like a robot. I talk like a robot. No, it's terrible.
That was pretty good, actually.
I think I'm good enough to fool someone on a dodgy phone line, like a international scam caller. I could pretend to be an answering machine. The number you have dialed is not connected.
And no, that's not Ben throwing his voice. The other voice you do hear is actually that of Samantha Howson, who has become something of a regular fixture on the show. And she's from the website happyandtragic.com. Our very own Alita Battle Angel, Samantha Howson. How are you, Sam?
Oh, wow. That's a compliment.
Yeah, I could have gone with the Cherry 2000 kind of thing, but I thought, no, better not do that.
Well, I'm glad that you went with the
Having said that, you do not escape the inappropriate would you rathers. I've got one for you as well. Would you rather own Paulie's butler robot from Rocky 4 or Gigolo Joe from AI?
That's Jude Law, right? Gigolo Joe.
Yeah, what do you know?
It'd have to be AI.
Yeah.
Because I don't really remember. I don't remember the other
I don't
one.
remember the robot from Rocky.
No.
Although you think it would be something I would remember.
I'm pretty sure it's the
'Cause-
stuff that he's putting back into the director's cut.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
See, your answer for Gigolo Joe makes you freaky. If you had have answered the Rocky 4, it would have made you really freaky. Oh well, Alita it is.
The good thing about Gigolo Joe too is that the hair loss halted. Like Jude Law would keep that, like his young man's hair, forever. He wouldn't end up looking like me. Which I'm shocked that he doesn't. Like he must have, like they must have cured male pattern baldness, but they've only given it to people like Jude Law.
Hey, Tom Cruise is starting to look like you. Did you see the photos last week?
I did see the photos. Yeah, but
Oh,
people
no.
were putting up. Was he playing Norm Macdonald in a Norm Macdonald biopic?
Pretty sure some expert came in and said he's had fillers and his face is still swollen.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's no
Oh.
way because he's in his 60s, isn't he, Tom?
Yes.
There's no way he can, like, even like George Clooney is prime example, but Tom Cruise is another one where they look like they're 25 up until they're like 45, 50, and then from 50 to 51, all of a sudden it all catches up with them.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, suspiciously, it hasn't really happened to yet, and it must be through artificial means.
Speaking of artificial means, yes, we are talking about robots. More specifically, this week's show is all about android movies, androids being robots with human appearances. And we're doing this in alignment with a new release movie called Zone 414, which stars none other than Melbourne's very own Guy Pearce. I don't know, have you heard of him? Apparently he was in Neighbours and Snowy River, the McGregor saga, to name others.
Many.
Yes.
Many more.
Dating the enemy.
Exactly.
Classic.
Well, that guy, he's our guest on the show, and I'm going to be chatting with him a little bit later to talk about that movie, Zone 414, and a few other things. Super excited about that, and stick around. The other androids are also here, as always, the ever-reliable Jarrett Gunn with the lowdown on this week's movie releases. Guillermo Troncoso will bring you up to date with the Screed Realm stuff. Chloe Ritchie from Movie Night with the Ritchie Girls podcast will explore an unlikely android movie. And Adam Ross from Triple M will come at you with a recommendation of his own. Plus, we've got the Boneheads from Bonehead Weekly, Joe, Chad and James. And they're going to disgrace themselves by gushing all over Guy Pearce. All of that and more coming up. Super fun show. But before we dive into it, Ben, have you ever seen the movie Heartbeeps? 1981.
Heartbeeps. It does really sound familiar.
That is the one with Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters, directed by Alan Arkush.
Yes.
Mate, this is. I just had to bring it up because this is another one of those movies that it's probably one of the worst movies ever made, if I'm being honest. But it's so shit, and I desperately want to love it that I just keep going back to it, and I turn it off at the same point every time.
Have you seen Making Mr. Right?
Oh no, that rings a bell though.
Where John Malkovich plays like the hunk robot. That I can't remember the woman who's in it, but she basically makes Frankenstein. It's a Frankenstein movie.
John Malkovich and hunk don't go in the same sentence.
But it's John Malkovich with a full head of hair,
Blonde.
blonde, full head of blonde hair, and it's notorious mainly because you cannot get the soundtrack. There is no soundtrack really available for Desperately Seeking Susan. If you want the record, it's like it comes with half of it's one side's the soundtrack for Making Mr. Right, and the other half is like a song from Desperately Seeking Susan.
Well, my challenge for anybody listening is to try and track down Heartbeeps and see if you can endure the entire duration. What a cast, though. Like, Ben, this is a cast up your alley. You got Randy Quaid, Christopher Guest, Dick Miller, Mary Warrenoff, Paul Bartel, and Jerry Garcia. It should be the robot movie for all ages.
Well, I mean, look, secretly, I've always thought Jerry Garcia was a robot. But yeah, look, it sounds like, I mean, that with that cast, does make it sound like a Corman film.
That's true. Well, the Alan Arkush connection there, so it probably is.
Yeah.
I believe it was a really expensive movie and it was a massive tank, and Andy Kaufman went on Letterman or one of those night shows and promised a refund to anybody that had paid a ticket to see it.
Wow.
Oh, did he deliver? I don't remember that part in Man in the Moon.
I think he did. But anyway, no robot episode could go without some Heartbeeps.
I was going to say, as a robot, he looks like Chevy Chase.
He does.
I actually, when I looked at the poster, I was like, is that Chevy Chase?
Anyway, Sam, what's news with you? Have you been diving into the world of Android movies since we last spoke?
I unfortunately this week was a bit busier than I had hoped, but rewatched two that I'm talking about today.
Excellent.
But yeah, I think that there's so many movies with an android in it that you could choose from, right? Like it doesn't even have to be like a major plot point, but there are just so many. I think we have like this weird fascination with all this android.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I definitely went for movies where they were prominent features in the story, but I know Adam's got one coming up, and when he proposed it to me, I'm like, well, that's not an android movie, but one of those characters is an android. Go for it. What the fuck? Yeah.
I thought of Alien, like you could do any of the Alien films. You could do like Lost in Space. You could do so many.
Totally.
Like, yeah. I love that Lost in Space. What year did that come out? It was like early 2000s.
Don't tell me you like that.
I do.
Ooh.
It came out when I was younger, and I loved
Hunky Matt LeBlanc.
Yeah. and the music.
Sexy Gary Oldman
at the end.
Was there
Sexy
Gary Oldman? Shockingly non-sweaty. Very unusual for Gary Oldman in a film. He's always sweaty.
In space, no one can see you sweat, mate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They could, because it's the future, they could have loud air conditioners all throughout the ship.
Yeah.
Climate control.
Oh shit. Well, anyway, before we move on, that's basically our little introduction. But I did want to ask you, Ben, has the sex bot arrived from Japan yet?
No, the sex pillow has, and that'll just have to do. Though it's getting a bit hard. It's the crust. The crust is kind of.
Oh, no.
Mate, you should have just done what I did, because my RoboVac doubles as a sex bot.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're expensive. My Japanese love pillow only cost me 40,000 yen.
Yeah, mine doesn't have crust.
Yeah, that is true. But I kind of, after a while, you kind of start to like it. It's like a volcano has erupted and ash has covered the pillow, and then it's dried and started to crack.
So you need the next model up. It's called the Crust Buster.
Yeah. That or like a hammer and a chisel.
Oh, fucking hell.
In Game of Thrones, where the guy gets the Mormont has the scales, has the scaly skin disease.
You're just giving everyone a lot of visuals right now.
Imagine that, and then imagine me humping it.
Oh my God. Well, before we disgrace ourselves anymore, before Ben disgraces himself anymore, let us handball it over to Jarrett, and we'll be back shortly. Might have to have a cold shower, and we'll talk about some stuff.
Hey, this is Jarrett, and welcome to PE Class. Massive week for home entertainment this week. I'm going to start with Imprint. They're releasing a box set titled Collaborations, The Cinema of Zhang Yimou and Gong Li. Now, this is an 8-disc Blu-ray box set. It is huge. It consists of 8 features that include Raise the Red Lantern, Shanghai Triad, and The Curse of the Golden Flower. All of the films have 2K restorations and an outrageous amount of special features on there. Now, Acorn Media are delivering 2 new Shudder titles to physical retail, being Sun and Fried Barry. Both are coming out on Blu-ray and DVD. And then Paramount are releasing Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins. This is coming out on all the formats, 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray and DVD. Now, the 4K does have Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, and the 4K and Blu-ray have the following special features: 4 featurettes and deleted scenes. Now, this week, Studio Canal are re-releasing a bunch of Hammer horror titles. I say re-releasing because they've been out before through Shock. However, they do have new restorations and lossless audio. So if you love your Hammer, then it's definitely worth double dipping and updating to these. These titles include Quatermass and the Pit, The Witches, Rasputin the Mad Monk, The Mummy's Shroud, Dracula Prince of Darkness, Plague of the Zombies, The Reptile, and The Devil Rides Out. Then the last release for this week I will mention is coming out from Universal Pictures, and it is Tremors the 7 film collection on Blu-ray. Now this is the first time some of these Tremors films will be seeing a Blu-ray release locally here in Australia, so they're all in this one pack and just in time for Christmas, so you can sneak it under the tree for Glenn Cochran. Anyway, that's it for me for this week. Until next week, stay physical.
That actually reminds me, he talked about those Hammer Horror releases this week on Blu-ray. I've written an article for Stack Magazine that people might want to check out that takes a look at each and every one of those releases and gives a little backstory about each of the production and stuff like that. So a little bit of self-promo there. Of course, Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, been a few weeks ago we had Andrew Koji on the show. So it's a good opportunity for people to go back and check that out. GoodMovieMonday.com.
And speaking of shameless self-promotion, I took a picture of some ducks at a swimming pool this morning. So you may want to check out my Instagram for that.
What did Mother Duck say?
We're not in speaking terms anymore. She knows what she did.
She's shit in the pool. It's like Howard the Duck meets Caddyshack. Anyway. Let's not beat around the bush here. We have Android movies to recommend. And Ben, I think we're going to follow your lead here, mate. Would you like to go first?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm positive I haven't talked about it on the show properly before, but I think I do reference it quite a bit.
Mm.
This is a film from 1995, directed by the great Fred Olen Ray. A dramatic pause for the applause of the listeners who all know who Fred Olen Ray is and love his work. He's very similar to Jim Wynorski, a lot more prolific than Jim Wynorski, but
little classier.
Yeah, a little classier. This movie is called, well, it's got a whole bunch of titles. Cyberzone is the name I came to know the film under, but it was also called Droid Gunner and Phoenix 2. I've watched the film multiple times. I still don't really understand where the name Phoenix 2 comes from. I'm sure like now someone's going to write in and go, "Oh, you idiot, it's the name of the ship," or something like that. Something for the life of me, I've watched it a couple of times and I'm going,
the question is, have you seen Phoenix 1?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen Phoenix 1. So, but this movie has a great cast and a great and even better plot. So basically, it revolves around the theft, the theft and subsequent smuggling of 4 sex bots. It's set in a futuristic Earth where all of the rich people live in, I think they're kind of underwater, like utopian cities, and the scum of the earth, like us, like not uber rich, live on the filthy streets where people eat rats and mutant rats and cockroaches, and it's like almost like a post-apocalyptic kind of society, and in one of the territories, New Vegas, I believe it is New Vegas, is a very moral, upright, kind of perfect city where there's no vice, no sex, no gambling, no seemingly nothing. It's just a place for perfect people to live. And they've also outlawed, funnily enough, androids and including sex bots. And
I knew sex bots would come into this other than what I introduced us with.
At some point, Matthias Hughes, the great Matthias Hughes, steals these 4 sex bots. Along the way, he loses one on the surface and smuggles these 3 sex bots into New Vegas. And the guy who the sex bots are stolen from, who I can't remember who it is, who the actor is, hires Mark Singer, that's right, the Beastmaster himself, to track them down. And he's a droid gunner, who is like it's like that. It's like he's a droid in Star Wars when they come into the cantina. Like, we don't serve your kind here. And he's just like a guy. What is this? Like, it's not like the bar isn't full of, like, I think Brink Stevens it plays a cat mutant woman stripper and stuff. So, like, why they've discriminated against Mark Singer is unknown. And of course, he just produces like a 50-cent piece and goes, "Well, I just want to buy a drink." And they're like, "Oh, all is forgiven." Discrimination was horseshit. We'll just take your money. But so he hires Mark Singer and sends his lovely assistant, played by Rochelle Swanson, to retrieve the sex dolls. And then, of course, they find out that they find out Matthias Hughes has taken them and smuggled them into New Vegas. So they infiltrate New Vegas and they get Rochelle Swanson to pretend to be the missing sex bot to get in and, all this
God,
stuff.
you wouldn't want to be that person. Like, imagine pretending to be a sex bot and then, like, surely they got clients coming in at you.
Well, yeah, and
just sit there and pretend. Just pretend.
He does a terrible job pretending to be a sex bot, because the sex bots literally, like, it's very similar to, I now can't remember the name of that TV series on Netflix, but the sex bots will attach themselves to anyone, and once they attach themselves, they will do anything.
Was that Black Mirror?
No. It's the one where you've got the stack in the back of your neck, and so you can kind of live forever as long as a little computer chip in the back of your neck.
I vaguely know.
New bodies. And he goes to a hotel, and the hotel computer, the hotel AI, has been discontinued in proper hotels because they will go to extreme lengths for customer satisfaction. And that's what these sex bots will do as well. Like, they're actually quite dangerous because they demand to give you pleasure.
Sounds like my RoboVac.
Yeah. I don't take no for an answer. And poor Matthias Hughes, he tries to resist. He tries. But he's overpowered. Like, Matthias Hughes is a huge man. And, like, what I really love about this film is that it is a real great showcase for Matthias Hughes, because usually in films he just gets to play he's usually the muscly bad guy. He doesn't really get to do much. And in this, he's got a lot of dialogue, and he's funny, and he's personable, and he's just really good. Like, and Mark Singer, he plays off Mark Singer really well. Like, they it's a good partnership, and it is a real shame that they didn't get to do more movies together like this. Like, they could have done a couple of sequels, except something happens to Matthias Hughes in the film. I don't want to give it away. I think I have given it away, but it does kind of kibosh the sequel. Like,
it sounds like an awesome movie, and I haven't seen it, and I definitely want to.
The DVD was released locally by Payless.
Oh, okay.
Back in the early 2011, 2012.
That's not surprising. The quality there speaks for itself.
Yeah, they released a lot of fantastic films on that label, under that Payless label. But Droid Gunner was one of them, and definitely worthwhile picking up. It's a show. It's like all good Fred Olen Ray films. It demands a Blu-ray. Hasn't happened yet.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Samantha, would you like to follow that?
Yes.
Good answer.
No sex bots, but
bad answer. Bad robot.
I chose for my first one is Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh yeah. Excellent.
Which I chose this one because it had like a huge element in the story, like you were saying before, with Data.
Mm-hmm.
And
Booby traps.
Basically, sorry?
Nothing. I said booby traps. You said Data. Never mind.
Yeah, so anyway, so it has like all the same crew, obviously, from the Star Trek series. This one is Star Trek 10.
And this is the next generation.
Next generation,
cast.
yeah. So, because they kind of like numbered all of the Star Trek movies together. But I think there was like 4 Next Generation films.
Yeah,
I
but it's
think.
still part of the same timeline because there's that
Yeah.
Generations movie that cross over the casts.
Yeah, with Shatner.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically this one features the Romulans, and but I don't know how much I want to give away of the story, but basically the main antagonist is a clone of Picard. So it's basically him fighting himself.
With a Japanese love pillow? Is there a Japanese love pillow involved when he's tussling with himself?
No, actually, there isn't any scenes where he's actually like, a little bit maybe, but
There
not
is
like.
there is a baby-faced Tom Hardy in there.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tom Hardy is really good in it, actually. I mean, I liked a lot of Tom Hardy's earlier stuff when he was still doing like English, when he was still in England mostly.
Like, I don't want to get too Star Trek nerdy here, but I do find it ironic that, because I think Tom Hardy is the clone, right?
Yes.
And he's completely bald.
Yeah.
They are making out that Picard was bald from birth.
From the whole time.
He had hair. There's other flashbacks in Star Trek of him as a young man, and he's got a full head of hair.
Yeah. I think actually the photo that Picard looks at, like when he's like reminiscing about when he was younger, I'm pretty sure that he didn't have hair in that photo, and I'm pretty sure they did that because they wanted to keep this kind of like, this guy is, because you can tell Tom Hardy's wearing like a prosthetic nose and everything.
Nose,
Yeah.
It's so weird. But then it was weird. I remember when Next Generation started, and it was weird that they had this like a bald captain.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like some dude. Like, why isn't Jonathan Frakes the captain? He's got a full head of hair and much more suited to command because of it.
But Picard's like, he's got like, well, he's probably the oldest. He's the oldest captain out of all of the captains.
Well, Star Trek captains are supposed to get fatter when they get older, so Frakes definitely should have been the captain.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart's still a lithe and limber gentleman, whereas Jonathan Frakes looks like me now. But he still has a full head of hair. So once again, much more suitable for command.
Does he retain water like Captain Kirk does now?
He's not going up into space. Jonathan Frakes isn't going up into space, though.
That's true. Did you see him up in space? Did you see the footage of William Shatner in space?
Yeah.
No,
he got really emotional. I would get emotional too.
But his speech pattern was Captain Kirk. Because he's looking out the window saying stuff like, "My God, it's marvelous."
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that he was the one that put that, like, you know what I mean? Like, he basically played himself when he was Kirk.
No, he did, but like, it doesn't change the fact it's amusing.
No, yeah. Maybe it was in his contract. He didn't have to pay for that, so maybe they said you have to talk like Kirk when you're up there.
That, or is having a stroke and no one knew.
And the fact that the spaceship looked like a giant cock flying up into the air.
I wish they would change that. It's just so. It's just too much. It's too much.
Well, if you're going to enter orbit, you may as well look like a dick.
You have to penetrate it. That's the only way to do it.
All right, so awesome. Anything else you want to add about that one, Sam?
I think it's really good. I was going to say that it had a lot of the Star Trek movies aren't looked upon very fondly, as far as I'm aware. But I quite enjoyed this one. It lagged a bit at the end. It feels like a big episode in movie length. So some parts you would just hurry it up a little bit. But I really enjoyed it. I recommend it.
Awesome. Well, very good stuff. Thank you. And we've got some more stuff to come, including my chat with Guy Pearce around the corner, followed by our next two recommendations. But here's Guillermo to recap what's been happening in the world of movies at Screen Realm over the past week.
What's happening, everybody? It's Gedman here again from ScreenRealm.com, Australia's favourite entertainment website covering all things movies and television. Here, as always, to tell you a little bit of the movie news that we've covered on the website in the past week, kicking off with Sony picking up a buzzed-about Jennifer Lawrence package called No Hard Feelings. Now, this is a coming-of-age dramedy that many studios have been looking at. It's going to be starring Jennifer Lawrence, and it's to be directed by Gene Sputnitsky, who wrote and co-executive produced The Office. He was also the director of the 2019 comedy Good Boys, which is quite a good little film. No plot details for this one as yet, but it's reportedly in the tone of Tom Cruise's 1983 film Risky Business, as well as the Cameron Diaz comedy Bad Teacher, which Sputnitsky co-wrote. A number of the studios were looking at this, including of course Netflix and Apple, but the apparent big price tag pushed them all away except for Sony. Jennifer Lawrence is reportedly looking at $25 million for this one, and Stupnitsky was also looking at a 7-figure deal. No word as yet as to how much this went for, but No Hard Feelings is a go at Sony. Oscar winners Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Foxx will be starring in an Amazon Studios picture titled The Burial. Jones will be taking on a role that was previously to be played by his Fugitive co-star Harrison Ford, who reportedly had to drop out from the project. The film is based on a true story, and it's an adaptation of Jonathan Hart's article for The New Yorker. The Burial will tell the story of a bankrupt funeral home owner who decides to sue a rival businessman over a handshake deal that went wrong. He hires a flamboyant attorney, Fox, to handle the case, which began as essentially a contract dispute and ended up encompassing so much more. On board to direct the film is Maggie Betts, making her sophomore effort as a feature director following critically acclaimed 2017 convent drama Novicia. The screenplay adaptation comes from Doug Wright, who penned the 2000 Jeffrey Rush film Quills. And around 4.5 years since the character of Adam Warlock was teased at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, we finally know who will be playing him in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Will Poulter, known for The Revenant, The Maze Runner, Where the Millers and many more, has been cast in the role. Director James Gunn, returning at the helm following the first 2 films, tweeted, "Welcome to the Guardians family, Will Poulter. He's an amazing actor and a wonderful guy." A Guardians of the Galaxy 2 mid-credit sequence saw Aisha, played by Elizabeth Debicki, leader of the Sovereign race, unveiling a birthing pod holding what she called the next step in our evolution. It was a being that she described as being more powerful, more beautiful, and more capable of destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy. Production on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is expected to kick off next month. And M. Night Shyamalan's next film officially has its title. It's going to be called Knock at the Cabin, and it also has a new release date, February 3, 2023 in the United States. That's 2 weeks earlier than was first announced for this film. The new release date moves Shyamalan's film away from Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is a smart move. As for the plot, we have nothing to go on, so speculate on what Knock at the Cabin could be about. That about does it for me, guys. As always, thanks for having me, ScreenRealm.com. Also, be sure to check out Screen Realm on YouTube, where yours truly is now providing weekly news rundowns in a weekly news series creatively titled Screen Realm Weekly. Thanks so much, guys. Catch you next week.
When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kinda human if I only had a heart. I'd be tender, I'd be gentle, and awful sentimental concerning love and art. I'd be friends with the sparrows and the boy that shoots the arrows if I only had a heart. Picture me, a balcony, above a voice sings low.
Wherefore art thou, Romeo?
I hear a beat. How sweet just to register emotion, jealousy, devotion, and really feel the part. I would stay young and chipper, and I'd lock it with a zipper if I only had a heart.
Well, you know the song, but do you recognize that voice? That was the Buddy Epson recording of If I Only Had a Heart from The Wizard of Oz. And Buddy Epson, of course, was famously cast as the Tin Man before having to step down from the role following a life-threatening allergy to the lead-based makeup. Like, talk about letting a role of your career go.
If you think back now, though, and you found out they were using lead-based makeup, the person who did end up playing That's him and probably died of some kind of horrible cancer.
Not to mention they used asbestos for the snow in the poppy scene.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, they-
really?
Yes.
It just sounds like, what was that John Wayne movie where they shot it out in the desert where they did the nuclear testing and everyone on the cast ended up dying of cancer.
Oh my god.
Why is my instinct to laugh at that?
It's a nervous thing. It's like I don't know what to say.
The reason for that song though is it was featured in the very underrated 1999 science fiction comedy drama Bicentennial Man, starring Robin Williams, Sam Neill, and Ben's favorite Oliver Platt. And Sam, do you know who directed Bicentennial Man? And don't look at your Google box.
No.
Well, I'll give you a hint. He discovered America.
Christopher Columbus?
Yeah, and look, my biggest regret, the last episode you were on, you made a joke about Christopher Columbus that Ben and I just completely brushed over. But I tell you what, it was my favourite part of the show when I listened back. Yes, it was the highlight for me.
I can't remember what I said.
Ben and I just talking about Christopher Columbus, who made this, and you just interject with discovered America, and Ben and I just kept talking.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're knocking down his statues now.
They are, and that's because that's probably because he made Bicentennial Man.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's a fantastic film, and
So
I
do I.
disagree with the destruction of his statues based on that film.
I agree completely. They want to knock down Alan Arkush's statue for bloody heartbeeps. That's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And before that song, you heard from Guillermo from Screen Realm. So go and visit screenrealm.com and support all of his work over there. It's a labour of love for him. It's a labour of love for us here. So we're going to move on to Guy Pearce. Let's talk about him for a minute. The man really needs no introductions. What are some of your favourite Guy Pearce films? Going to put you on the spot here, both of you. Ben, do you have a favourite?
Well, Ravenous.
Yeah.
I like Ravenous. I like Lockout. I don't know why.
Lockout. The Boneheads are going to talk about that in a little bit, but
I like that one. Even like it's so familiar. Like I can't quite put my finger on what it is. You know what? I have to admit, I've never seen Memento, and that I feel like that is a major gap in my Guy Pearce.
I would say Memento is probably my favorite Guy Pearce performance. Definitely. But I met him on Holding the Man, which I worked on. So that was Lockout. Is that the one with the in the space?
Yeah.
And it's like a jail thing.
Luc Besson was sued because it was a rip-off of Escape from New York.
He was like, I don't know where I got the idea from. I was watching John Carpenter movies on TV, and then suddenly the idea of a prison in space movie came to me.
Yeah, and the next movie he made was Memoirs of a Transparent Man.
Yeah. I was just reading books by H.G. Wells. And then it came to me out of nowhere. What if the loneliness of an invisible man, of a transparent man? I don't know how I come up with these things. They're just in the ether.
Either they're good, either they're bad. My favourite performance of Guy Pearce is Heaven Tonight, which I'm sure you know, Ben, right back in the 80s movie with John Waters about the father and son musicians that have this feud because there's this whole argument over rock versus pop, and the dad is a washed up rocker, and Guy Pearce is the son that has a hit with a new pop song, and it's like this massive friction and tension between father and son. It's a great film.
I have not heard of this film. I need to check
you
it
will
out.
know the poster. You will know the poster, guaranteed. Yes.
What's it called?
It was written by Frank Housen and part of the Boulevard films, which
right.
I'm sure you know.
I wish I
Uncle
would have.
Frank.
I've met Frank Housen a couple of times.
I've met him many times. He's a staple name in Melbourne.
Yeah, I wish I had known about this.
Related to me.
Just bear with us, everybody, while Ben looks this up.
Looks it up. I mean, I always thought that Frank Housen's greatest contribution was the fact that he was John Michael Housen's brother. I didn't realize that he actually did stuff.
Cousin. But if you go back...
cousin? I thought it was brother.
No, if you go back, Frank Housen created Boulevard Films, and their first 5 or 6 films were incredible. Guy Pearce was also in the Flynn movie, playing Errol Flynn. They did Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which is an incredible film. There's a lot of good stuff. Well, let's I've got an interview teed up here, so let's go to that. The new film is Zone 414, which some people might say is cut from the same fabric as Blade Runner, maybe. I recently had a chance to chat with Guy about the film, and he goes into depth talking about it. Have a listen, enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. How are you, Guy?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. How's things treating you over there?
Well, all right. Certainly better than they are in for all my friends in Australia at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit precarious, that's for sure.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Melbourne.
Melbourne, yeah. Okay. Riots, earthquakes, Jesus.
You name it. Never a dull moment. So, wanted to start just by asking, because there's a lot about the production of this film that I'm not aware of, but I'm guessing that you squeezed it in before the pandemic took hold?
Yeah, and I didn't realize the pandemic was going to come, so it didn't feel like I was squeezing a job in. It certainly felt like it was just one of the few films that I had sort of lined up. I'd done Without Remorse in the December of 2019 in Berlin. And then this was basically January of 2020. And then I went to, this was sort of January, February of 2020. And then I went to Pennsylvania in America to do really just 7 days on Mayor of Easttown. My first day being the 12th of March. And of course, by that point, we were all aware of the pandemic and everything was sort of shutting down around us. And I'd done 1 day on Mayor of Easttown on the 12th of March, and then we shut down. But obviously, back in the olden days of January, February of 2020, it didn't seem like a problem. So we managed to get Zone 414 done in time. And, thankfully, we all, with Andrew at the helm, made a good film and got it done before we got closed down.
Oh, lucky stuff. And can we talk about Andrew for a moment? It's quite a remarkable feat to pull off a film of this quality, considering it's a first-time feature for him. What was he like to work with as a director?
Oh, he's delightful. I mean, he's a great guy. He's lovely and funny and, just really has great taste. And, so it was a good collaboration as well, because I think he was aware that he was sort of embarking on something that felt perhaps bigger than he dealt with before. And so he said from the outset, look, you clearly have far more experience than me. So any thoughts and ideas and, any concerns that you have, please raise them. Let's talk about them. Let's get to the point of being on the same page. So he was very honest about that. And aside from my usual kind of questions and process, I suppose, before starting any film, there was nothing out of the ordinary. He's just a clever guy who had a really good sort of vision of what this could be, and certainly based within the sort of the budgetary constraints that were there. I mean, it's not a big film by any means, but sort of budgetary wise, and we know that there's been lots of great sci-fi films out there, that are $100 and $200 million kind of budgets, and it's the world is your oyster kind of stuff. But what felt great about this, and I suppose rang true to me, particularly as an Aussie actor, is that we take a great idea, a great story, something that feels true and emotional and relevant and sort of connected as far as characters conversing with each other, and going, what's the best version of that we can put on the screen for this limited time and budget and that we have, and Andrew was really simpatico. He's not a big budget guy himself, even though he's done some pretty cool and expensive music videos.
Mm-hmm.
But what he was interested in was what I'm interested in, which is sort of the psychology that exists between two characters, whether it's these two or these two or these two or these four together, and so just because the film was set, somewhere in the near future, and it was about a technology that we're all kind of, chewing our fingernails that might eventuate. Really, it's a human sort of story, and because it, in a way, sort of relates to the sense of identity that we all feel we're trying to find, and we all feel is even harder to find in this modern world with technology and the fact we all communicate through little robots called our telephones. In there somewhere is a beating heart and a kind of an emotional drive that I think lays at the heart of this film, and so of course we have Matilda's character, who's essentially an android, but she's starting to feel things, and that's what this film sort of looks at. So it was kind of interesting on a number of sort of bigger levels. But it was also lovely and intimate, and Andrew was really across all of that. He was great, really lovely to work with, and just had a good sense of perspective, I think.
I think you nailed that on the head, because that's what I took from it too. There is a big scope to it, but the intimacy is very obvious as well. And I was wanting to ask you about the character you play. Like you've played many different types of characters over the years, but you do seem to make light work of these types of characters, which are, I guess, the rough around the edges, almost detective types. What draws you to these sort of characters?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think, to bring a sort of to find flaws in a character and yet to find an intelligence and a drive and a sort of a motivation where, I mean, it purely depends. I'm really interested in all sorts of characters. There's no question about it. I'm really happy to play someone who's catatonic, and as long as we're looking at why they're catatonic and how they've gotten to that sort of stage. And, I think it's a fairly common and popular sort of film storytelling device, if you want to use that word, where you have a character who's an investigator, or they're thrown in a situation where they've got to sort of keep moving forward, and they're either asking questions or they're avoiding questions. And with something like this, you've got somebody who clearly, as an ex-cop, has a sort of a natural, fascinating sort of drive to do the things that they do. And yet, of course, we find this character that I play where he's kind of repressing his own history. He's repressing even just his surroundings. He says from the outset, I'm just doing this to make money. I need to make money. That's all there is to it. And yet we know as an audience, and we want to investigate what's really going on for him. So I think that question about our own behavior, or that question about our own identity, or the identity of those around us, is just stuff that I'm always naturally interested in. And that sort of manifests in different forms, whether you're playing a cop who's an investigator, who's, we were talking earlier at work this morning about LA Confidential, and what a great character that was that I got to play, and obviously Russell's character and Kevin's character, etc. These fantastic investigators, but that you're always imbuing them with the character's own personal story. And I think that juxtaposition of personal drive, a personal kind of desire to understand who you are. So if that exists in a character, as well as how your character sort of fits in the world, all these kind of existential questions about life and our own sort of, reason for being here. If that stuff is bubbling away in at the bottom of a character you're playing, then I'm always interested, whether it's set in the future, whether it's set in the past, it doesn't really matter. It's the emotional stuff that I'm always sort of drawn to, and obviously certain films fall into kind of certain categories, and I tend to forget that. You know, people saying, what's the genre? And I'm like, I don't know. He's a guy who's trying to figure something out. You go, oh, I guess it's sci-fi, or I guess it's a horror film, or I guess it's a, you know, I forget about genre stuff because I'm always focusing more on the individual and what the individual is trying to sort of work out for themselves or trying to avoid, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to touch upon two of your castmates, probably more observational than anything, but Travis Fimmel is almost unrecognizable in this, and his appearance is almost not too far removed from yours in Prometheus. Like, did you sympathize with the poor bloke?
Yeah, those hours in makeup, you know, but of course it was his doing and he wanted to, you know. What was great, I mean, you know, Travis is lovely and hilarious, and, you know, I think when you are born with such beauty and you want to be taken seriously, you do everything you possibly can to get away from that beauty, you know. And so I think what was really relevant, and it isn't just that, it isn't just about Trav's kind of perspective on himself. I think, you know, what was really important and what he brought to the film was this idea that, you know, he's playing a man who's trying to create a perfect world out there. So, and as we know, there are plenty of people out there who do so much sort of plastic surgery and, you know, different kinds of work on themselves that ends up meaning they just don't look human anymore. They just don't look, you know, they're actually kind of running away from themselves rather than getting to the heart of themselves. And you know, the whole notion that if you do one more thing and another thing and do another thing and do another thing, that the search just is eventually going to reach some sort of climax or some sort of finale. And he wanted to play somebody who clearly isn't satisfied with how he looks. And, you know, obviously he's creating these androids or these robots or whatever you want to call them, but he's kind of also trying to create himself. So it was a really interesting choice of Trav's, and it was great. You know, it was fascinating to be on set with him and go, wow, look at you.
Yeah, definitely. The other one I wanted to touch upon was I was thrilled to see Ned Dennehy pop up in this movie because I do like him a lot. And did you know his first movie was The Matchmaker by Mark Joffe, who's, you know, a mate of yours?
Yeah, no, I did know that, and I've not, Ned and I have not come across each other before, although he had worked with Pearce, my partner, in a film some years ago. So and I'm not sure because we made Zone 414 in Belfast, which is where Pearce always filmed Game of Thrones. So I think they'd come across each other as well. So I was certainly aware of Ned, and he you know, was passing on his love to Pearce, you know, when we made the film. But he's a very interesting actor, and I think that scene, you know, of his is one of the most compelling in the film. It's such a sort of heart of darkness, you know, moment where you just think, wow, what has humanity sort of got to? But that's what the whole film kind of is about. And in an interesting way, you know, it's always funny when you play a character who's really just the observer of all the madness around, you know, a bit like when I did The Proposition, or, you know, on some level, you forget who it is you're playing because the main task is to just observe the, you know, the unusual nature around you. And,
yeah, definitely.
And Ned certainly brought that. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask on a personal level. It's probably self-explanatory with everything going on in Melbourne at the moment, but do you miss home?
I miss home like crazy. Yeah, I came home at Christmas to do our final Jack Irish, and it was the first time I'd been back in 2.5 years, which was way too long. We were meant to shoot Pool Boy in Australia last year, and obviously that all got messed up by COVID. And so yeah, I'm homesick all the time.
Yep. Well, that's good to know. But from me on a personal level, I've been a fan of yours right since the beginning with the Boulevard films, and Heaven Tonight is just right up there for me. Absolutely, watch it. I watch it regularly.
Wow, sleeping and dying.
Flashback. Yes. But thanks so much for making time for me. I know your time's precious. I do appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Good to talk to you.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. Take care, mate.
Welcome to Bonehead Weekly Fun Size. Guys, he's got one of the best actors on earth is on the show.
One of, if not my favorite actor of all
working
times.
today. Guy Pearce, and I'm going to give him a compliment. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
He is in 2 movies that are not good, and he is the best part of them.
Oh, I know what you're going to do, you bastard. Go for it.
One of them is The Time Machine.
Yep.
The third act, okay. But he's and when they cast him, I was like, oh, but the movie's not very good. That's not his fault. He's the best part of the movie. And Chad, what's the other one?
I'm going to say Lockout.
Lockout, which was which is basically a ripoff of Escape from New York. There's a whole thing of it, but he's still amazing in it.
He is such an anti-hero smartass. He's great.
So good in it.
And the opening sequence of him being punched and the credits going over as he sways back and forth. Oh, it is fantastic.
He's so good in it.
Again, it's not
the movie is not, well, it's not, but Guy is fantastic. Love to have him on the show. James,
I would love to have him on the show.
We would love to talk to him about
literally 3, as soon as this topic came up, like 3 films came to mind. One of them is literally one, and just a great film.
Stop saying literally and great.
Count of Monte Cristo. Why don't you put that in the donut and stop eating, Mr.
Count
Critical?
it, Chad.
Anyway, Count of Monte Cristo. The other one, actually, I really enjoy him playing opposite villain to Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man 2. His casting there worked out pretty well.
You mean Iron Man 3, James?
Yeah, you'd mean Iron Man 3.
I do cocaine because Iron Man 2 is Mickey Rourke. Anyway, the last one I have to say, and this is the one I assumed Chad would assume I was going to talk about. Again, you always have an opinion one way or the other. You have to give credit to Ravenous.
There he goes.
Thank you.
Chad called it while you were gone. He said Ravenous and Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, you didn't see Iron Man 3 coming though, did you?
No, neither did you. You said Iron Man 2.
I do cocaine. I mean, not well. I don't know how to do cocaine. I assume I just have to put it in a scanner. Is that how the kids do it?
We're going to get you into a drug class where they teach you how to do it correctly.
How to do them. Thanks.
Oddly enough, it's at the self-help place next to the rehab. Chad, go.
Well, since Joe stole Lockout, I'm going to talk about one that probably Glenn's going to hate me on because sometimes I steal Glenn's picks, but I got to talk about The Proposition.
Yeah, fantastic performance.
Guy Pearce is fantastic in that movie. Him playing Charlie Burns, a man who is given a choice, die or hunt your brother. And not only is it a completely gut-wrenching performance by Guy Pearce, the beauty of just a desolate wasteland that is Frontier, Australia. Which
beautiful. Is pretty sure what it looks like today.
Oh yeah. Glenn with the flies all over him every time we talk. It's just terrible.
And Ben, I feel so bad for Ben because he's my soulmate.
Yeah, and he got scalped by that drop bear. I'm telling you, it's terrible.
Ben.
Oh my God, are you going to start singing Ben by Michael Jackson? No,
I
really.
Shouldn't sing anything, but Ben could be my bear.
I'll grow a beard just like Ben. I can't grow a beard just like Ben.
Hey, I'm amazed we got through this, by the way, without mentioning Memento. Now cut it.
This is Bonehead Weekly Fun Size.
Bye, Ben.
Man, those guys really do love Guy Pearce. I wonder if they know about Jack Irish, Ben.
Yeah, I am always constantly surprised at how big some Australian actors are overseas. Like for us, it's just Guy Pearce. It's the guy from Neighbours.
Yeah.
And then for them, it's the guy from Memento. And you're like,
yeah.
Oh, I suppose you could look at it that way, but
I think we should tell them to go back and watch his guest role on the Colin Carpenter show.
Yeah.
And Sam is probably thinking, what the fuck are you talking about?
No idea.
Colin Carpenter?
Colin Carpenter show was the best.
Colin.
Nobody listening to this can see Sam's face just like, what?
Thoroughly unimpressed. Why can't they say the name Colin?
Because it's Colin.
It's Colin. I went to Ashwood Secondary College, and Ashwood Secondary College's claim to fame was that Kim Gingell went to high school there. Well, I think at the time it would have been Ashwood High or Jordanville Tech, but he was the only famous person to have come out of that school.
Sam, this was a guy that was famous very much in the 80s and early 90s. He was on a famous sketch comedy show called The Comedy Company, which had one of his characters had his own TV show called The Colin Carpenter Show, and Guy Pearce was a guest on that. It was a really good show too.
And one of the co-stars on the Colin Carpenter show, Stig Weems, wrote a kids book. And when I was working at Borders, he came in to do like a reading. And then some bright spark had the idea that it'd be fun to let him have a go at the PA system. And he went to town.
Mate, he still does that. He goes around to schools reading books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow him on Facebook and Instagram. He's fucking great value.
He was very entertaining. Like he definitely pulled up because it's a kids book, and there are a lot of parents with their kids there. But then there was a lot of other people that he pulled up from his PA announcements.
I am gonna tell him to listen to this show. He'll get a kick out of that. Big ups to Stig. You've taken me back, mate. Awkward pause. Okay, Ben, it's your turn. No, I'll take the lead on this one. I'll take the lead on this one. The first movie I'm going to talk about is Class of 1999, which is the thematic sequel to Class of 1984, both of which were directed by Mark L. Lester. Now, going back to Class of 1984, just to lay some context there, that was a film. It's one of those films about, a school that's been dominated by gangs and crime and all that kind of stuff. And then you get the teacher that comes in and tries to swoop in and clean things up. But in that movie, the teacher's wife ends up getting like completely gang raped. And then he unleashes like a bloody hell of violence on the students. And it's glorious. It's glorious stuff. And I highly recommend it. But 8 years later, Richard Lester followed it up with Class of 1999, which told of a dystopian future where schools are still overrun by crime, and it's so bad that the Board of Education teams up with this sort of massive mega tech organization to send in android teachers. So they've got 3 military androids that have been reprogrammed to teach and react to bad behavior. And of course, their old military modes kick in and they just become like killing machines on a rampage. And it's fantastic stuff. I really do love it. And it's a lot more far-fetched, obviously, than the first movie. And that's the fun of it. The robot teachers, they're great. One of them's played by Pam Grier. The other one is played by John P. Ryan, who's been in The Right Stuff and It Lives and Runaway Train. He's fantastic. He plays the senior of the robots. And then Patrick Kilpatrick from Free Willy 3 and Eraser and Replacement Killers. In Free Willy 3, like, you're laughing, but he was like the dad that's out there like killing the whales. Like, he was the one that had to be taught the lesson. And I like him. I like him a lot. And he was really young in this one, really good. And what I find interesting about these robots is the way they actually interact with each other when they're not at school. So they all live together, but they talk to each other like they're human. Like, they actually, there's no reason for them to communicate when they're at home. If they're robots, they just shut down and then, come back the next day. But no, they sit in their armchairs and they have a yak. It's just so stupid. But Stacey Keach is also in this one. He plays the big tech boss, and he's got like this weird Snow White mullet, and he's got white eyes for no apparent reason, other than it looks really cool and futuristic. And Malcolm McDowell plays the principal. So yeah, Class of 1999. I really do love this one. It's available on YouTube that you can rent for a few bucks. Full of violence. Punks getting their asses kicked is really cool. Now, I was going to do Class of 1999 Part 2 for my second film. But the reason I've chosen not to is because it turns out that Sasha Mitchell's not a robot at all. He just thinks he is. So, spoiler alert, gets to the end and it's like, you're not a robot. You're just suffering massive trauma from being in the war.
Wow.
But if you want to round the trilogy off, that was originally called Class of 2001 because it is set 2 years after the previous film, but just, I guess, to sell videotapes, they called it Class of 99 Part 2, even though it's not set in 99, so that's confusing.
That's weird.
But Ben, that's my recommendation. What are you sitting on over there, sir?
Well, I had never seen this film before, and so it was a good opportunity to watch it. It is 1975's The Stepford Wives.
Classic.
Directed by Brian Forbes, the guy who did Seance on a Wet Afternoon and King Rat and one of the many International Velvet remakes.
Hang on, stop right there. How good's International Velvet, I must say. Carry on.
I've only seen the original. I've only seen the one with Mickey Rooney and
That's National Velvet.
there's National Velvet. So which one's International Velvet?
The one with Anthony Hopkins and Tatum O'Neill.
It's the same story though, right?
No, it's a sequel.
Yeah. So yeah, they're related. Is my point.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. So I've only seen National Velvet. Then I haven't seen International Velvet.
Anyway, carry on. It's good.
It stars Mickey Rooney, and he plays a jockey, like a jockey trainer, who trains a very young, what's her name? Elizabeth. I can't remember her name. Liz Taylor. Liz Taylor to ride a horse in the National Velvet. No.
And the thing is, it's a robot horse, right?
Yes. No, Liz Taylor is a robot.
Oh yeah.
She's made out of plastic. That's why she's so light. Can ride the horsey faster than the stupid humans. No, it's based on a novel by Ira Levin, but the screenplay is actually written by William Goldman, so you know it's going to be a corker. It's a pretty fantastic film. It stars Catherine Ross. Catherine Ross and her husband, played by Peter Masterson. Like one day he just kind of comes home and basically tells them that we're moving to Stepford. I've got a job there. And he's a lawyer, and this place is the perfect town, and we need a change, and this is it, because the city is violent and full of bad people, and Stepford is lovely and wonderful. And Catherine Ross is a bit against this, but what's she going to do? So they all move to Stepford, and soon Catherine Ross starts to notice that all the women are only like doing housework and doing whatever their husbands want, and she can't quite figure out why. And then she meets Paula Prentice, who's like similarly new in town, and she also doesn't understand what's going on. And Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island is another kind of new in town member. And then things happen, and her husband's constantly going off to I can never remember the name of it, the men's association or the men's club or whatever it is. And having like all these kind of like lodge meetings and stuff. And then like then her friends, Paula Prentice, like all of a sudden she gets into gets into housework and stuff like that. And if you like, I don't think I'm spoiling anything to say that basically what's happening is that the men folk are turning the women into robots.
Yeah. Well, it came at that time when you had a spate of movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and as you said the other week, Soylent Green, these movies that kind of take society and present an alternative, and like the spoiler from Soylent Green, it's the same as Stepford Wives. It's the classic spoiler that most people know whether they've seen the movie or not.
Yeah.
And it's a horror film too. Like Stepford Wives is a horror film. Like it's it is chilling.
I have to say it is really weird. Like it is hard to know what is actually happening with Stepford Wives, because like I did fall down a bit of a rabbit hole. I also watched the made-for-TV sequel, Revenge of the Stepford Wives.
With Don Johnson.
And Julie Kavner, a.k.a. Marge Simpson.
Yep.
Is in it, and Sharon Gless from Cagney and Lacey, and The Stepford Children with Barbara Eden, another made-for-TV movie.
And don't forget.
Sorry?
Next one.
Oh, and The Stepford Husbands.
Yes.
From 1996 with Donna Mills and Michael Ontkean.
What a franchise.
What a franchise. And it is hard to tell, like through all of them, it does become a bit clearer in the 94 version, but what they do to the women to turn them in, to make them subservient, like in the original one, you don't know. At one point, Catherine Ross does walk into a room and she sees a replica of herself just without eyes, and kind of freaks out. And then next thing you know, she's one of the wives. You as far as you can tell, she's been replaced by a robot. Yeah. Then things in the other movies, that may not be the case. There are other things going on. So
it's a little like, I don't know if there's like, actually what they have in the book would be really interesting to.
Have you read the book?
Discover. No, I haven't. I think that would like answer
a lot of it.
A lot of those questions. Yeah.
I was actually surprised that it was Ira Levin who wrote the book, because it's like, this is 100% like a Michael Crichton type story. And I like before going into it, before like reading the Wikipedia page, I could have. If you would have asked me, I would have said it's based on a Michael Crichton novel.
Yeah, totally. It's very Westworldy.
Yeah, totally. And it is a super watchable movie. Like it is really good. Paula Prentice is once again the first thing I ever saw her in was Man's Favorite Sport, and became immediately obsessed with her. And this movie again, you kind of see why she's just effervescent.
And did you know Jordan Peele cites Stepford Wives as the biggest inspiration for Get Out?
That makes a lot of sense. Like the themes are the same.
Yeah, totally.
It's good. Like they're branching out. They branch out too. Like at one point there's a black couple moved to town, and this town is like there's no black people in this town. Like it's 100% white.
I just had a thought. That couple that just moved in, it's Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters from Heartbeats.
They're on the run from another town where they replace people with robots.
Shit. Well, thank you, man. That's a great film. I love that one. Very appropriate for this show. But we've got to push on. When I told Chloe that we're doing Android movies, this is what sprung to her mind.
Hello and happy Monday, friends. I'm Chloe from Movie Night with the Richie Girls, and this week had me working hard against every fibre in my body not to talk about Turn Me 2, a movie that definitely sits in my solidified top 5. Must resist, Artie. Instead, I'm going to talk about an animated movie that, in my opinion, didn't get the recognition it deserved because it was well and truly stampeded by Frozen. Big Hero 6, in all honesty, is one of the better animated movies of the 21st century. Despite it not being a musical, which, is always a plus in my books, it makes up for it in that feel-good, family-friendly, all-around fun. And what's not to love about it? The lovable ragtag group of superhero friends, the voice talents of Jamie Chung and Alan Tudyk and Maya Rudolph, or the giant marshmallow robot whose only want is to help people. The main characters, brothers Hiro and Tadashi, are orphaned, super genius robot engineers. That's totally relatable, right? Their brotherly, lovable relationship is what gives this movie its feel-good nature. And spoiler alert, when Tadashi's tragic end is what brings this movie back down to reality and gives the movie feeling and depth that will bring tears to your eyes, whether you're hormonal like me or burly and gruff like a certain husband I may be married to. Baymax, the android and creation of Big Brother Tadashi, is what sparks the story and the relationship between Hiro and Baymax after Tadashi is gone. His sole purpose is to recognize when someone is hurt and to help them heal. The way I see it, after multiple viewings of this remarkable animation, I'm reminded of life and society today. A lot of the scars we have are the ones that we don't see, and this is the way we as an audience can realistically relate to Hiro. It's grief and depression and isolation that we're suffering with today, and I feel like Disney are just tremendous at capturing raw human emotion and speaking to the masses without directly saying what they're trying to portray. And I can relate. I bet a lot of people can. When I'm feeling depressed and overwhelmed and anxious and truly like I can't be in my own head, I turn to technology too. Movies, TV, social media, TikTok, etc. They're all ways that we can mentally escape. I just wish Netflix was a big giant marshmallow that I could hug and could dispense band-aids. Back in 2014, when Big Hero 6 came out, all of this technology and social media stuff was still relatively new, and Disney still had the forethought as to how it could potentially help us cope in this day and age. Now, we all know androids and AI is our future, and Disney was smart enough to make him look like a squeezable, lovable, pokeable, friendly, giant hug on legs. That's smart. Because in truth, we're all aware that we should probably be a lot more cautious with technology, but, it's also not going anywhere. Our kids and our kids' kids will be laughing at us in 2050 for thinking Big Hero 6 was, advanced technology. This movie is smart, and it's funny and emotional and imaginative, and just everything that embodies a great animation. That's all from me this week. Happy Monday, friends!
I had forgotten all about Big Hero 6. I like that movie.
Has Chloe watched a movie made pre-1990?
I don't know. She can respond.
It's not that I don't have an issue with it. I'm just curious because all of her recommendations are for relatively recent movies.
Yeah, well, she prides herself on being the mainstream focus of the show, and I guess when you go mainstream, you don't look back, mate.
Yeah, certainly not to Meet Joe Dirt.
It's always new things coming out, so it's yeah.
Did you know,
Big
Hero 6 is technically the first Disney Marvel film because that's based on a Marvel comic.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
interesting.
Marvel had a very short-lived kids line.
Yeah, well,
like,
Disney
they were
had.
trying to. So they were trying to capture in that kind of the anime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because is that when anime started getting really popular?
Oh no, long before that.
Yeah, it'd been popular for a while, but that shows you how kind of slow and archaic a lot of these big American institutions are. Like they just figured it out, and by the time they figured it out, it had already started to. I don't want to say it started to decline. It hadn't, but it gotten to the point where there was already like classics, like that had been around for 30 years.
Well, there's
like,
popular, and then there's like mainstream, right? Like it can be popular, but as soon as it hits mainstream, that's when everyone knows it. It's like a household thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Chloe comes from the podcast Movie Night with the Richie Girls, which she hosts with her mum, Kate. It's good fun, and I believe they're gearing up for their second series. Of course, you can also catch Chloe alongside myself on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:30 for our Up Late videos. So, Sam, it's the two of us for the next round. Would you like to take it away?
Yes. I am doing Stepford Wives as well.
Get out of town. Stepford town.
2004. 2004 with Nicole Kidman. Well, a huge cast, really. Nicole Kidman, Glenn Close, Bette Midler, Matthew Broderick, and I don't know why I said it like that. And Christopher Walken and Roger Bart. And basically, it's the same deal, except they really accentuate the females and who they are in this film.
Well,
like,
some may say this one's a comedy.
Yes, yeah. It definitely on IMDb it does say that this is a comedy, whereas the other one says horror. So it's definitely like, oh, and Frank Oz directed this one, so that might give you a little bit of a insight as well. But it's hilarious. I love this film so much. I actually have, like, people can't see this, but you guys can. I have the DVD, and it's got the Video Easy sticker on it. And I've had this for so long, and I grew up watching it, and I loved it so much. I watched it like 1 million times. But
man, you still got a sticker on that thing.
I
Tell
do.
you what,
Yeah, it says brand new as well.
I cannot leave stickers on things. It just drives me
really?
insane. The second I get home, that sticker's off.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like a part of it. But aren't you sad that you don't have like all these, stickers from Video Easy and Blockbuster?
I've got
now
fucking
that they're
rolls
gone?
and rolls of them in my garage.
Yeah, but it's not on the DVD.
I don't miss that at all. I know what you're saying. Like, I don't have a problem with it on VHS tapes. Like, Ben behind him, people can't see, but he's got a collection of VHS. A lot of them have stickers on them. That's fine. There's something weird about that I like. But on DVD, I don't think they're retro and nostalgic enough to have stickers on them. I don't know. Carry on. I'm getting angry.
Yeah.
I have to say, I found like the comedy in the remake, it's so broad, like, and they really belabor some of the points, like that, like at the start when Nicole Kidman's giving that speech, like she's a top flight TV executive.
Yeah.
She's at like the upfronts addressing the crowd, and the crowd is like 90% women, and she's talking about the most like aggressive and offensive reality shows that like that they would make jokes about later on, and all the women are like standing up and applauding, like they love that stuff. And they even when they get to the town, like the women are so aggressive, like the comedy is so like aggressive and obvious, like in your face, like the kind of they beat you over the head with, that the women are second-class citizens and the men are pigs, but simultaneously they're all idiots too. Like they're all man babies, which I guess does make sense because a real man doesn't want an automaton for a wife, whereas a man baby just wants a glorified servant and /sex toy.
I think that
John
that's
Lovett's perfectly.
yeah, John Lovitz. I forgot to mention him. Yeah, I think that the reason why they really, I think the comedy is through how obvious they make all of this as
I mean,
well.
the original is quite subtle. Like if you don't know what Stepford Wives, if you have been living under a rock for 40 years and have never heard of Stepford Wives and watch the first movie, you wouldn't really, it's not that obvious what's going on. Whereas, and even then, the thing, like I was talking about when I was talking about Stepford Wives, the first one, the second one, they do explain it a lot more. Like there's microchips in the brain that control the women and all that sort of stuff. They don't understand, but they still replicate that scene when Nicole Kidman walks in on the fake Nicole Kidman with no eyes. And you're why?
I don't understand that.
Well,
either.
I guess the film arrives with the world knowing what Stepford is. Like, it's so it kind of has to.
Which is why it went to
differently.
the comedy thing. But and they do have the twist at the end is pretty good that I didn't see coming. Although I have to say that if I did think it was odd, as much as I love Glenn Close, I did think it was a bit odd that all the other women are these perfect model types, and then Glenn Close. You're like, I mean, I love Glenn Close, but even as the perfect housewife, she's a bit manic.
She's the prototype.
He was,
she's just a bit full on. You'd be like,
but I guess that in at the end of the film, it kind of answers that.
Oh no, totally
with the
does.
twist.
With it totally, like Glenn Close's character makes 100% sense once that happened.
But before that,
But why? Yeah, why is because they're not, and that's something that happens in the sequel too. They're not they're not robots. They're not replaced. By androids. And in Revenge of the Stepford Wives, it's the same thing. They're all it's a lot more pharmaceutical than it is mechanical. And they, this bell goes off in the town, and all the women that are robots stop and take this pill. And if they take too many of the pills or stop taking their pills, they kind of revert back to themselves. And that's kind of how Sharon Gless foils the plot. What is different? What is really different about the sequels and stuff? And I think to a degree, even in the Stepford Wives remake, is that the whole town is in on it. In the original, it's only the members of the leaders of the town, members of that gentleman's association. Like the regular people have no idea what's going on. Whereas in the Revenge and in the Stepford Wives 2004 version, like everyone in Stepford is 100% on board with this. And I think, aren't they in Stepford Wives, aren't they? They're actually talking about branching out.
Yeah, they talk about because she mentioned, or they mention at the end, that the men were going to be replaced, or not replaced, but the men were going to get chips as well. So basically, the whole idea was to make this perfect world, this perfect existence,
where men are men and women are women.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they did in this new one, or the remake, they did make all of the women like these big CEO successful women, and the men were successful too. It's just the women were more successful.
I did find that funny when she's researching them on the internet and she finds out who they are, and it's like, she's a supermodel by day, but also a Supreme Court justice nominee. You're like, oh.
It's funny seeing the photos, the differences between and even that, when you were saying before how the comedy is so obvious, even the pictures are obvious. It's it goes from the Stepford look to the pictures that she finds on the internet, and they look like dominatrixes. They're got the hair back and this sour look on their face. It is, it's true. It's it's quite an obvious thing, but I think that's where the comedy is in the film.
And it really is there's that scene in The Big Sleep where Humphrey Bogart goes into the bookshop across the road from the one that he's stalking, and he talks to the salesgirl, and she's got the glasses on, and he's like, oh, do you have to? And she goes, oh, sorry. And she takes them down and undoes her hair, and he's like, ooh, it's like she's a whole different person. It's totally it's the Superman Clark Kent.
Yep.
Thing. They're like, I didn't recognize her when she had a different haircut and was wearing normal clothes.
Well, Well, I think the Stepford Wives remake is an excellent, if anything, case study against the original. I think they're really good to sort of watch back to back and sort of make those comparisons and have conversation. Is there anything else you want to add about that one before I kick off with mine?
No, go ahead.
Awesome. I'm going to go back to 1985. I'll keep this one pretty brief. It's a movie that will no doubt trigger an explosion of nostalgia with anyone our age, Ben. I'm talking about Daryl, the movie that was directed by Simon Windsor, the Aussie guy behind classics like Phar Lap and Free Willy and Lonesome Dove, and it starred Oliver Barrett, who was Bastian from the original Never Ending Story movie. This kid was hot property in the 80s. Wouldn't you agree, Ben?
I didn't personally find him hot, but yeah, sure.
He was he was one of those kids in Hollywood that appeared to be sort of dominating the screen, even though he didn't really make that many movies. But the movie Daryl is a great science fiction drama about a 10-year-old boy who, it turns out, is actually a government-created robot who has super intelligence and superhuman reflexes and abilities, and even sort of he starts to develop human characteristics, almost like a Pinocchio kind of thing. And I should also say that Daryl, his name, is an acronym for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Life Form. But the story goes that his adoptive parents have no idea that he is a robot, and that is until the government decide to terminate the project, including all of their test subjects, and that means that Daryl is scheduled for destruction. He ends up going on the run with the help of his developer, and the story sort of becomes a manhunt thriller. This sort of thing happened a lot in movies back in the 80s with the government and the military chasing kids or chasing escaped experiments and all that kind of stuff. But it's very cool.
The government wanted to keep their secrets.
Yes.
It was always and experimenting on their own population.
Yeah, even go back to E.T., the same kind of thing. You always had government agents, chasing kids with guns, pretty much. And the story does get a little bit complex at times. It's hard to articulate, and I'll probably leave it at that. But it's one of those, like I said, high-tech family adventures that came along when Short Circuit was big and War Games and Manhattan Project. It was just a really, really good era. So the cast included Michael McKean, who, modern-day TV fans would probably know from Better Call Saul. Others might know him from all of the Christopher Guest movies, Spinal Tap and all that. Mary Beth Hurt, Joseph Sumner, and Colleen Camp and David Waller in this. It's got a good cast, and it's easy to find. It's on digital platforms, so if you've never seen Daryl and you love 80s adventures, go for it. Check it out. You a fan of it, Ben?
Definitely. I remember watching it. It was one of those movies that they always used to put on. My parents used to send me to, was it the school holiday programs? I don't know if you remember these things. So that it was at the Oakley Mechanics Institute. They always used to send us because they were working. Both my parents worked, so they couldn't look after us on school holidays. So we went to this thing, and you'd always have there'd always be movie days, and Daryl was on high rotation. From the moment it came out.
Yeah, it's such a fun movie.
Flight of the Navigator and Never Ending Story and all the movies with this kid.
Yeah. Oliver Barrett, he made a small handful of movies. He was in the original Frankenweenie, the short film that Tim Burton had directed. With who was in that? It was what's her name from The Shining? Can't remember.
Shelley Duvall.
And Daniel Stern. But then he just sort of disappeared. He's one of those kids that didn't grow up to become a Hollywood actor in his older years, and I think he's a photographer now. I think there's one lone image of him online that you can see, and he looks like a hippie. But you can't find anything about this guy anymore online. But
he really does look like a hippie, doesn't he? He looks like a dirty hippie.
Yeah, I'd love to track him down and chat with him. That'd be fantastic.
He's got dreads.
He does. But anyway, let's move on with the show. Adam has a recommendation for you, and it may or may not be something that Sam mentioned earlier.
Hey guys, it's Adam here from Adam's Just Seen and Triple M with another Good Movie Monday recommendation. This week we are doing android films. Now, I think that there's very little argument here that the greatest android in cinematic history is Bishop from Aliens, but I have gone on about that movie a lot, so I am going to go adjacent. I'm going to stay in the same franchise, despite what Ridley Scott says, and talk about another android in the Alien universe, and that is David, played by Michael Fassbender in the film Prometheus. Now, Prometheus split people like an atom. This is a film that some people think is one of the worst things that's ever happened to cinema. Or you're like me, you think that it is an incredible film, a wondrous film. I just was looking up before what I said on Rotten Tomatoes for my review, and I said, very few films can create a genuine sense of wonder and discovery, and Prometheus manages it for its entire 124-minute running time, almost entirely a sensory experience. And I still agree with that assessment. Now, Alien just lives in a special place in any cinephile's brain. And so when Prometheus was announced, I mean, we all went apeshit. How could you not? This is Ridley Scott returning, to his absolute best film. Ridley Scott is widely considered, a visual stylist, if not the best visual stylist in cinema. And I think absolutely pound for pound, inarguably, Prometheus is his best looking film. I still remember exactly where I was sitting in Melbourne Central when this movie opened, and look, it was so loaded with hype. I think that in my lifetime, this, Mad Max Fury Road, Blade Runner 2049, not to the same degree, I don't think any movie had as much hype and as much hope in it as Prometheus. And also, while I'm at it, I think that the trailer for Prometheus with the space scream echoing is probably, the pound for pound again, the best trailer that I have ever seen in my cinematic lifetime. It gave me chills. I couldn't believe. So Ridley is taking us back into this universe. What are we going to discover? Now, do I think that this movie of these people answering an alien call and landing on this planet that is hostile fills out all of its, of its promise? No, I do think that there are some issues with this, primarily the fact that it just isn't a closed loop. Operating as an Alien prequel, and that's what this film is. And I was so confused when Ridley Scott started saying this is not an Alien film. I'm like, why are they wearing the helmets? Why is all the iconography all the same? Why has it got these kind of, these temples and this imagery that we've seen? So I almost bought it, and then I'm like, no, this is just really good marketing. He's trying to get us there. But the way that this film functions, especially its first couple of acts, when we have this sense of discovery and where they're following these astronauts as they're leading to something, because we have encountered the xenomorph in the sequels to this film, we know what danger that they are in. And the sense of dread in this movie is so incredibly palatable. It honestly made me physically ill. I couldn't even kind of watch it. Then this is where the movie, from my mind, in cinephiles, this is where we split, is that what they encounter are these prototypes. They are these not fully formed versions of the Xeno. It is showing a new system in this, this ecoverse, if you will, and people didn't like that. They're like, what is this snake thing? What is this hybrid thing? What are these different things? I really do believe that if Ridley had have maybe kept it stripped back to the face hugger, to the traditional xenomorph model that, that Geiger gave us, this film would borderline be perfect. I'm standing here today defending Prometheus to you right now. I can't do that with Alien Covenant. I hate that film. I hated that film so much that I don't think I've revisited it. I maybe watched half of it again once, but I've seen Prometheus probably about a dozen times, and I love getting stuck into its sense of wonder. I think it's got excellent performances, especially by Michael Fassbender here as David, who was already on everyone's radar, and this just cemented him as an actor to watch. I mean, you can't take your eyes off this dude. But I just think, too, as well, that, Prometheus is... I'm so upset that we don't get a third film. I thought, Prometheus, great, Covenant, crap. Maybe this third one in this trilogy that Scott is saying that he will finish at some stage, but I think that this is going to just be one of those cinematic outings that this is it. We don't get the full journey. And so, but as it stands, I think that Prometheus is something that you should maybe reevaluate. I mean, maybe you saw it and you did hate it. A lot of people didn't like the character decisions. They thought that what they were doing was kind of stupid. I never really subscribed to that. I was just so taken with the production design and the sense of atmosphere. And I think, the more and more I explore film, especially as a critic, the thing that I like and admire the most about the films that I love is their atmosphere. All of my favorite films have got a really, really dense atmosphere. And I think that's something that's very hard for filmmakers to create. And Scott made an incredible atmosphere with Prometheus. So if you're a hater, maybe just go back, see if there's something in there that you like. And if you haven't seen it, honestly, plug in. Go for the journey with Mr. Ridley Scott. Highly recommended for me, Prometheus.
Who or which android do you reckon was better in the Alien franchise? You've got Ash, played by Ian Holm, You got Bishop by Lance Henriksen, Call with Winona Ryder, and David, Michael Fassbender.
It isn't Bishop's in it twice, right?
Yeah, he's in number 2 and 3.
Because he's Alien 3, yeah.
I think Fassbender was really good. He was creepy and like intimidating. But I mean, you can't not go with the original either.
Yeah,
like
glad you
it's
said
hard
that.
to, yeah.
I mean, but it is hard to go past because you know that Michael Fassbender is concealing a giant mechanical penis under his onesie. In those movies, you're like, this, yeah.
That's actually what the chest burster is. It's him from behind.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, if you enjoy Adam's take on things, then that guy has a Facebook page called Adam's Just Seen. So track him down there and check it out. And boy, does that guy like to articulate. He's pretty good at that.
I'm just sorry. I don't mean to keep going on about it, but I love the fact that Fassbender is like the male Pamela Anderson.
Is he?
It's just well, because like, are you paying? How much attention are you paying to his acting ability? Like, you kind of I'm just constantly like, what's he doing? How's he strapping it down?
You're the only person I know that's focused on his dick.
I'm totally obsessed with it.
I know.
It's just
he does have a fast bender, mate.
He could beat someone to death with it. It always reminds me of that scene in Longest Yard where they talk to the prison guard, one of the prisoners in the shower, and they're like, and they look down and he's hung like a donkey, and they're like, well, you could always beat him with that thing, and he's like, I want to hurt him, I don't want to kill him.
Shit. Well, how about a couple of notable mentions? How could I do an episode without an Albert Pune reference, Ben? So I'm going to go with Nemesis. Nemesis being Albert's answer to Terminator. I think that's a fantastic movie. The original is great.
And the 3 sequels.
Yeah, but that original with Olivia Gruner, incredible. Ex Machina was a good one. I did like that.
Yeah, I forgot
about Omega Doom.
Well, yeah, I was only going to stick to one Albert Pune film, but you can go for it. He's got lots of robots in his movies.
He's got lots of robots in his movies. Universal Soldiers is all robots. It's not Albert Pune, but you know.
No, that's great. Well, yeah, Heat Seeker. Do you remember I talked about that one about the robots that fight?
Yeah,
great stuff.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned your favorite robot movie, Real Steel.
Well, because they're not androids. We're actually, I'm sticking with the androids, not the robots.
They need to have AI. Is that the deal?
Hey, there's another one. AI. I think that's an awesome movie. Did talk about it earlier. Nah, Ben just.
I remember liking it. I liked reading about it afterwards more than I actually liked watching it.
I love it.
I got a bit bored.
I know you're not a fan of it, Ben, but I think Turbo Kid's a good one.
I've tried to watch it a couple of times. I couldn't get into it. I don't like. I feel like I find what's the name to be really disturbing in it, Michael Ironside. Because it's the first movie where I've watched him where I'm like, oh, he's old now. It upsets me.
That's disappointing.
Like Starship Troopers, he's fucking awesome, and you're like, I just want fuck off Casper Van Dien. I just want it to be Michael Ironside in the whole movie, like leading the troops. And when he gets killed, like it hurt. It hurt inside. Like I got a little heart sore. And then the next thing I remember seeing him in, I think he was in ER for a while. He was pretty good in that. But then he's old in Turbo Kid. I'm like, no, Michael Ironside doesn't get old. He's a robot that lives forever. And
at least that set your expectations for Nobody when he played the father-in-law.
Yeah.
He's really fat and old in that one.
Mean, he is, but he's kind of back to being like he's kind of almost tough guy asshole self. Like he's not, there's no eye patch and whatever nonsense he's wearing in Turbo Kid.
Any other notable mentions that either of you have? Didn't prep you for this.
No. What did I say before?
I mean, I do like Terminator.
Oh yeah, of course.
Terminator is
that's too obvious, isn't it?
Any of those, I liked. What about Looker, the Michael Crichton movie?
Oh yeah,
with the models, and what was that? The athlete one, the Golden Girl with James Coburn, where they're manipulating all of the female athletes with electronics.
Oh, so that's not the Betty White story.
No, no, it's B. Arthur, mate.
She is the only golden girl.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, on that note, we have pretty much reached the end of the show. That's another week in the can, and on to the next one. Next week is an exciting one because it's our official Halloween episode, and Ben and I are going to be talking about anthology horror movies, and our special guest will be John Cassar, the voice behind Tales from the Crypt's Crypt Keeper. You definitely don't want to miss that one. Make sure you join us. It's going to be heaps of fun. Huge thanks to our players, Guillermo, Jarrett, Chloe, Adam, the Boneheads, Joe, Chad, and James. Our work is never quite complete without the help of Tia behind the scenes, so thanks to her as well. Sam, we always love having you on the show. We'll see you back in a few weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And Ben, good having you, mate.
Thank you. I'm going to go and watch Star Trek Nemesis now.
Yeah. Yay. The show actually had a purpose this time. It did the trick. Well, anyway, of course, Sam, you will also be on our Thursday videos every week, so you're not that far away. Looking forward to those. Join us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We have videos. Watch them. We're going to leave you with a classic, You Could Be Mine by Guns N' Roses from Terminator 2 soundtrack. And back when songs in movies actually mattered. So,
controversial opinion.
We'll see you next week, everyone. Have a good one.